With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu. At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
Sports Card Nation, the hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews, it's your number one source. Sports Card Nation, the hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Sports Card Nation, 346 to be exact, and just a few days here away from the National. I am obviously getting ready. I'm all packed up. I've recorded some stuff in advance, including this episode and the next couple as well. I like to just sort of get to that event and not feel like I forgot something. I venture a guess many of you feel the same way, even with, all the stuff you have to button up before you make the trip to Chicago this year and in the next couple years. So hope to meet a lot of you there again or for the first time. Either way, if you see me and know who I happen to be, by all means, say hello, shake a hand. We'll, talk a little hobby, see what you picked up, see what I picked up, or how successful or unsuccessful I was in scratching some things off my target list. While we're talking about the National, some programming notes. On the Thursday, the first Thursday of the National, the second day of the National, Hobby Hotline will be live on the Mike Burkus main stage from noon to 1 p.m. And immediately following that, Sports Card Nation will be live from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. local Chicago time. That Sports Card Nation Live will feature myself, Tony DiMarzio, and Tony Liebrick, Southern Collector 14. Tony DiMarzio's TJ is online, and we're going to definitely be talking some vintage, talking to National. It's going to be fun, and that hour will go quick. So hope to see you some at from the main stage. So basically from 12 to 2, Hobby Hotline with many of your favorite hosts from 12 to 1, and followed by Sports Card Nation Live with me and Tony Squared live from the main stage. So a lot of live on stage fun. Always a privilege and honor that I get to do that, it seems, every year, and I don't take that for granted. But today we have the conclusion of our interview with Brandon Edwards of Bobbles Ballcards, and really great guy, and have a lot of similarities with both of us being SGC bulk subbers, and we're gonna definitely chop up some of that SGC rumors and innuendo. But want to thank all our sponsors: Iron Sports Cards, Sports Collectors Digest, Hobby Hotline, and Upper Deck. But with that being said, let's get the show started. Time for our conclusion of our conversation with Brandon Edwards of Bobbles and Ballcards, and we're going to start off here getting into the nitty-gritty of what's going on with SGC. Let's get into SGC. Let's get deep sort of into the woods here. We both shared a commonality. We both were bulk subbers for SGC up until June 11th, and on the same day, and I know we've obviously talked before recording this, we both received a call from our reps on June 11th. letting us know that the bulk rates for SGC were going away on June 20th, over and done with now at the time of the recording. And, we both talked like it was a disappointing call to not only receive, but both of our reps were very, they were just the messenger and we're not happy to make the call. We've seen other people's content, right, sort of say, the end is near for SGC. Nat Turner was just on with Leighton Shelton on, Sports Card Therapy, I think he calls his show. I know Leighton, so he'll forgive me if I get that wrong. But Nat went on there and said, hey, we're not killing SGC. It wasn't, I think we both can agree, wasn't enthusiastic, let's say, or how do you want to word it? Like it wasn't over the top convincing, but he did go on a show and say, hey, we're doing some different stuff, but we're not killing the brand SGC. We like SGC. We've brought some people over from SGC that wanted to come over to PSA, so that came out, which was sort of alleged until kind of Nat confirmed it. Like you, I'm a huge fan of the brand and what they do. I don't want to see SGC go away. I know, getting ahead, and I'll let you. I'm kind of rambling on here. I'm going to continue to do the bulk subbing. Obviously, I've got to adjust prices to higher than I'd like to, but you have to. That's either do it or you don't, and not do it. That's what you've decided to do, and I get that, and I understand that. Just kind of your thoughts on, it's funny because when I heard the content now about 5 or 6 weeks ago saying like SGC is going to be phased out, I'm like, this is crazy. And then that phone call came, and I'm not predicting this either, but I was less convinced after the phone call than before the phone call. Kind of your thoughts on state of SGC and where your mindset is, kind of like I just talked about.
So the conversation or the piece that was shared with Nat Turner, it went back to something that I had told my rep when he called. And I asked him, and he's always been really straightforward with me. I never have had a reason to question what he's telling. But I asked him, I said, is this a step in the direction of collectors, abolishing the brand or whatever? And he said, I'm confident that isn't the case. And I said, well, do you not feel like that this is a step in the direction, maybe not forcefully shutting the company down, but moving it in a negative direction? And it's actually sad. As someone that's been there and seen the growth and everything, when I started bulk submitting with them, they had 4 employees. 4. And you can comprehend that, a grading company with 4 employees. To see where they are today and then know that, okay, Nat says, we love SGC, they're not going away, but PSA has an issue. And we're going to take staffing away from the brand that has had great momentum. They have a lot of support. They've grown. They've had awesome turnaround times, awesome pricing. They went from nobody wanting to buy their slabs at shows to now slabs being in like all the dealer showcases. But we need help at
Big
PSA.
Record, listen, not to cut you off. We've seen record-setting auctions beat with cards in SGC holders for sure, no doubt.
So the solution is, because PSA has a problem, we're going to take away from SGC. And my first thought was, okay, I could understand if SGC was struggling getting cards or whatever. All right, let's adjust. But SGC currently has a backlog, and you're going to take away during the backlog, which then immediately tells me we're not worried about those 5 to 10 day turnaround time, which was a huge selling point for people submitting to SGC. Our solution to this is we're going to cut, and Nat says it right in that little clip, we're going to cut the dealer bulk submission, bulk rate discount to help support the demand coming into SGC. Now, you can kind of read between the lines here. We're not shutting SGC. We're not getting rid of the brand. But we also really aren't worried about whether or not they get a lot of cards. We're not worried about the direction. And there's some people with this take I heard Dustin in his video say it, and I actually messaged him about this. And this theory, this statement has been out there. You have people that submit to PSA that don't like SGC, and you have people with SGC that submit to them that don't like PSA. So if you shut SGC down, that doesn't mean that PSA gets all the business. However, there's also been the statement since the acquisition and the fear by the SGC folks, and there's been discussions, will they turn into operating like PSA? You start making these moves and you see these negative impacts that they're now doing. It's no longer two separate companies when they start operating like one, or you see one getting tugged on to help the other one, and the users over here are the ones suffering. That's going to put the bad taste in the SGC crowd, and they're not going to go to PSA. They're going to go elsewhere. We just came out of Fanatics Fest, and there was some pretty big buzz, some sales. I don't know if it'll help them at all, but Beckett got a couple spotlights on a couple sales. I mean, they're a well-known brand in the space as well. CGC, I think, was set up at Fanatics Fest. They're pretty cheap. They have everything that if they could put one foot in front of the other, they could take off. And so it's not basically saying we're not going to close SGC, but we're not really worried about affecting the SGC customer. That's the takeaway I got from it. I also am worried because we don't know what graders they took. Did they take the experience for PSA, and what is that going to do, or how will that affect the SGC grading?
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a bunch of great points, not just one, but that last one too. Like, if you take the best graders, right? It's like taking the best players off a team, right? What's left for the team? They're probably not going to be as good. They're not going to be competing. They're not going to be winning as many games. Using a sports analogy, it's a great point. And hearing you say that, right, and thinking about what Nat said, I agree with you. Like.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
On one hand, he's like, hey, we love SGC, but we don't love them enough to really like full-heartedly support them. Like, we're going to take care of like our own house first, almost at the expense of the SGC brand. Yeah, and that's like you said, that's worrisome.
Yeah, I don't want to say this in a gruesome way, but kind of the way I like when I was talking to my wife about it. We're not killing SGC. We're just going to critically wound them.
Yeah, they're going to be in the hospital for a bit. It's going to be touching, and at times it might be touch and go. Here's the thing. I think, and I said this even before this happened, Brandon. I said, man, when we were pretty spoiled and getting those 5 to 10 day turnarounds, as you well know, and I well knew, people were shocked on my, like, the order's back already? Like, yeah, it's back. I had one that was, I sent it on Monday, and it was back here on the following Wednesday or Thursday of the next week. Insane and unheard of with any brand, like even the little guys who don't get as many cards, and people got spoiled by that. And this was obviously after the acquisition. And I remember thinking quietly right in this office, like, man, if I'm PSA, I'm like, here's our little brother. Our parent company just bought them, so they're under us, and they're outshining us at a lesser price level. Like, it makes us look bad. And I said to myself, like, what are they going to do something to, whether it's them getting faster, or are they going to do something to make SGC slower so they don't look as bad? And I think we have our answer now. PSA isn't really getting any faster, so it's not the former, it's the latter of what I just said, unfortunately, for us. And this isn't coming from a biased point of view, but getting rid of the bulk sub rates, right? You didn't necessarily have to do that. You know what I mean? They could have left that and just had the turnaround times be sort of what they are. Like, why? It's almost like they don't want as many cards going to SGC.
Yeah, it's
Um,
were you, I don't know if you were, because I know I've subbed a bit longer than you on the bulk sub.
yeah, yes,
I
you
don't
have.
know if you were doing it when they raised it to $50 a card, back when they were like 2 month turnaround time or 3 month, whatever it
Yeah,
was.
I've done it for now for about 27, 28 months.
Okay.
Um,
This was early 2021.
yeah, yeah. No, I
And
hadn't done. I was a subber, but I wasn't a bulk subber.
so I
Yeah,
get a call one day from my rep, and he calls to tell me that, and they had been like tweaking prices, here and there, and trying to find a comfort zone because the pandemic and everything, it was kind of crazy. And then I get a call, and he says, we got to raise the price to $50 a card. And as soon as he said it, I said, I'm done. I'm like, there was no thought, because in my
yeah,
mind, I'm like, there's no way I'm telling my people $50
yeah,
card. Like, there's no chance. And so Pete calls me and explains it to me. He's like, we're just trying to get things under control. We're way behind. I'm like, all right, understandable, but this is crazy. $50. I'm not doing that. Let me know when you guys are gonna adjust the price back, and I'll start back. And I did, but it feels almost, it's not quite as extreme, but it's like, this feels like a price change without actually changing the price, because they know the submitters that stay doing it have to be above their level. But here's the part that doesn't make as much sense, okay? You're saying that you're taking away the bulk discount to try to control the volume, but people can still send themselves and get the $15 rate. Now, most people are aware that one of the biggest benefits and one of the reasons that they give bulk discounts is because it's more efficient to do one large order than it is 100 smaller orders.
yeah.
So what if this doesn't change? It might affect the volume a little, but what if it doesn't actually overall change the volume? Well, now you're getting the same amount of volume. You're going to take longer because you can't process them as quickly, and you have less staff. Then what are you going
Yeah, well, here, yeah, that's a great point. I don't. We're about to find out. It appears
to
we're in this. To be honest with you, let me ask you this. Let me throw this out there and see your thoughts on it. There's a prevailing thought, or there's a theory. There's a theory that PSA doesn't really want to kill SGC, but they want SGC just to be known as a vintage grading brand, where PSA becomes more of a modern, ultra modern, and vintage too. They're not turning away vintage, but make just SGC, which has always kind of been how SGC's been labeled. Although that started to change recently, so maybe
Mhm.
they sort of wanted to revert back to that. What do you think about that theory?
I was trying to pull gem rate up here real quick to see. I thought they gave a breakdown of years.
I think they do that once, like they come out with different reports, so it's not always
Yeah,
you
I
have
don't
to
see
have.
it on the May
Yeah,
report there, right on their thing. But okay, so my question goes back to, and this is the most disappointing part. Why crush the effort? Why crush the momentum? Why crush the growth? Why crush the support of the past 5 years? SGC has their only sports cards. Like, they get very little TC. The backlog of a company like PSA and CGC is being driven by the TCG market. So why make these changes to crush the momentum of a company, or attempt to throttle the intake, which, okay, let's say that works. Let's say they do get less and you're processing a few more over here. I mean, how many, I don't know how many graders SGC had on hand or how many was taken, but you have to think, like, what is the balance going to be? Is it going to make any sense? And on the terms of just a vintage grader, well, yes, I've been adamant that more and more collections will be found, more and more raw vintage cards will be found, but that spigot also will trickle and become less and less. So how long is that going to keep them afloat? They talk about, well, Beckett does what, 50,000 or whatever they do a month. Is SGC going to get 20,000 vintage cards a month? I mean, and you're every move that you make like this, you're adding more questions. You're adding more concerns for the people that support the company. I have been heavily vocal. I have been heavily supportive of SGC. Like I said, when I started using them, they have 4 employees. There's probably other people that's been there way longer than I have that have been using them. But you have to start questioning what is the moves they're going to make? What is the purpose? How long will this survive? And I think Nat is trying to protect his image and his brand. And also, it doesn't make sense to kill the company with momentum. But at the same time, I think he also knows it's easier to let it fade out than to just shut it down. Even if you're making 100 grand a month, that's better than 0. So just keep letting it trickle, right? So
here's the thing, though, and I agree with you. But even doing that, whether they do that or an announcement comes a week later from the show and says, SGC, we're going to shut SGC down. And a great run, but it was a business decision. However they word it, right? It doesn't make any sense because here's why. Because for people who love SGC, like me or you, and many others for that matter, right? People submit to SGC because they don't want to submit to PSA. Mm-hmm. So now you take them off the board, you take that piece off the board. Those people aren't going to sub to PSA. They're going to now go to CGC, Beckett, and other grading companies. You've actually fed and helped your competition by the decisions you made. Listen, CGC is number 2 when you add in TCG. I'm not a TCG guy. So to me, SGC is number 2 in sports cards. But these decisions, right? These decisions are going to open that door. CGC's got some momentum. You mentioned Beckett at Fanatics Fest got a little bump, right? You may not even own the number 2 sports card company anymore. You might own the 1 and the 3 or the 1 and the 4. And why not want to keep the 1 and 2, right? If you're Burger King and you own McDonald's and you can keep both in play, and why not try to do that rather than make a decision where now Wendy's slides up to number 2 and McDonald's goes to 3 or 4. And I think there's ways to do. I think and again, there's smart people there. I'm not calling them dumb. I don't think that's fair. But there's ways to do some things and still maybe accomplish what you're trying to do and sort of stiff arming the competition. I think this helps the competition. Which I if you're a business, why would you want to do that? Unless, maybe they are trying to get rid of SGC, which, God, man, I hope that's not.
So it's kind of like this scenario where no matter how you look at it, it kind of doesn't make sense, right? Because PSA, to my understanding, as of a couple weeks ago, had a 4 million card backlog, okay? So you take away a few graders from SGC to try to help this. Well, I don't know how much of a dent that they're going to really do when SGC as a whole is only doing maybe 120-ish, let's call it 150 tops a month, 150,000. That's not putting a big dent. Let's say they take a third of them away and they can push through 100,000. That's not a big dent in 4 million. On the flip side, if you're trying to take demand away from SGC and you're hoping it comes to PSA, well, then you're just increasing your demand even higher over there.
Someone's at my door. I've got to get that. Be right back.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com, or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
Sports Card Nation has returned.
To your point about maybe keeping them floating because of the vintage, they have an advantage there versus Beckett and CGC because you really don't see a lot of vintage. Like BVG, Beckett Vintage, has like never really been a thing. And CGC, you see some here and there pop up, but it's really not vintagey as well. So they have a bit of a benefit there, and I think they could sustain. But the real question is what is the volume of vintage that's going to come through the door each month? And you have to keep like, I know, like I've read comments on some different videos or my video. People think that this is all just about a conversation of the world's ending, a bunch of drama, and that's not necessarily the case. I'm trying to look at it a more realistic picture. And as submitters, both of us sitting here, we talk to a lot of people that are submitting cards and that have had questions. Many of them have been big support. Many of them have moved from using a different company to SGC, and now there's questions. So it's not just us sitting here. I'm perfectly fine with, okay, if SGC doesn't, it would, if they get shut down, it would suck. But I would just go to another company and continue on as normal. It's not that the world is falling. It's that there is a lot of questions that people are having, and you have to have these because the further it goes along, the turnaround time. We both know that was a huge incentive for people to use SGC. If it's going to take 2+ months, what benefit do you have then? Outside if you like the tuxedo, or you're flipping them, they hold a better market than some of the other companies, but you've taken that advantage away. So you have to hope that there is enough true SGC support there from the collectors that want to spend the money to have their cards in capsule and that won't mind it taking a little while longer, the 2-3 months, whatever it gets to, because every time PSA or Collectors Universe makes a move like this is the key point here. I love SGC. I don't want them to go away. I don't think that they would shut them down. But every time that a move is made that is negatively impacting the company and the volume starts to diminish, you're taking the relevancy, you're devaluing the brand. SGC cards didn't sell worth a crap 5 years ago. Nobody wanted to buy them. If you start chinking that armor and dropping it back down the scale, you are then devaluing the brand that worked so hard to put itself in that number 2 position. The values will drop.
Yep, I don't disagree. And here's the other. Let's just put the cart ahead of the horse. Let's say PSA or Collector should say decides to do away with SGC. And I know we both hope that's not what happens, but let's just say it does. That's what we do in the hobby. Sometimes we speculate. That's gonna hurt PSA because that's just gonna open up the door for CGC, Beckett, who knows who else, maybe even a new company to move up. I don't think that's going to help PSA. And I really don't. And so I get they want to try to help themselves, but if closing SGC is not the answer, I don't. But
I think so. A lot of people don't even like recognize the history of the grading companies, and they look at CGC as being a new company.
No,
they actually used to own SGC. Yep. SGC was under Certified Collectible, who owns CGC. So they've been in the card game dating back to the early 90s. They abolished SGC, and that's when Dave Foreman took over the company and created it as new SGC. So CGC's not, they're not a new kid on the block. They have Beckett employees that came over. Andy Broom helped start up the when it was CSG. Yeah. So there's experience there. They have a nice holder. They're the cheapest of the 4 main companies to grade with. Their turnaround time isn't great. They came out of the blocks like people were submitting a ton to them. That actually hurt them a little bit because they got behind. And then that green ugly label, they changed the grading scale, and then they just kind of lost momentum. But I don't think it would be that hard for them or Beckett if they see an opening, if they see an opportunity, and if the hand is forced for other people to go elsewhere, it wouldn't take much to bump some of them back up. You know, it's not like they're new kids. They're not new graders. There is a lot of history and experience there. I'll tell you, I've sent stuff to CGC because there's stuff they can do that SGC can't. They have they can slab like up to 360 point cards. SGC can't. So I've sent stuff to them just for that. They have JSA. That's another positive on their belt, you know. SGC doesn't have autograph grading. They also have Blackstone, a massive financial, you know, they have money that can be, they're worldwide. They just, I think, opened a shop or a facility in Dubai, I believe. They're worldwide. So
I have Blackstone too, Brandon, and I love cooking on it, but that's another story.
But no, I mean,
you're
my
right.
true inside feeling is SGC isn't, I don't think that, but it's still, I think the reason that I point out all of this is it really sucks being there when they were the little kid. You know, they were the little guy. They weren't, you know, people, oh, the tuxedo's ugly. SGC sucks, blah, blah, blah. And experiencing the growth and seeing all of the people change their mind, you know, seeing the dealers at shows actually using SGC, seeing all of the submitters. I mean, there is how many bulk submitters now? I don't even know. Like there's shops and everything. Seeing all of that, to know that they're basically intentionally trying to turn the table to an opposite route. I think it's disheartening for me to see that. It's sad. You know, you mentioned that I made the decision.
Here's the thing, and we're kind of coming down the home stretch here, Brandon. If their intent is to phase out SGC or close SGC, I'd rather see them sell them to someone else.
Let Dave have them back.
You know what I mean? Sell them. Yeah, let that or wherever. Sell them to another entity that's going to keep them around rather than just phase them out. I'd rather see that. Just real quick, kind of wrapping up the episode, and I'd love to have you back. And so let's put our tinfoil hats. I'm going to let you. I just did an episode of Hobby Quick and I talked about. What do you think? You know, however far ahead you want to go, what do you think ultimately happens? You know, it's all speculation. Obviously, we don't know with certainty. But if you had to guess, where do you think this winds up?
All right, so trying to be Nostradamus and predict a year from now. Okay, well, we'll go end of May. So June 1st, 2026. SGC, I think, will still be in business, but they did 145,000 cards in May of 2025. I'm going to say maybe 50,000 for May of 2026.
So one third of the company in a sense of what they are.
And I'm not even worried about the volume, the demand. If they truly are taking like staff away, that's going to immediately lower the capacity that they're able to. So I'm not even like looking at it on a scale of, oh, people is going to stop sending. If the plan is to take people, they're not going to be able to do as much. It's simple math. So I'm going to say they're still in business. I do think the demand will fall a little bit, but just by sheer number of, you know, PSA taking away, you know, staff, the capacity will drop. And so I'm going to say maybe 50,000.
Yeah, I won't argue that, right? It makes sense. You explain how you think that happens, and I don't disagree with you. Let me ask you one last question before we sort of wrap up. Do you think they want that to happen like that, or even worse? And then they can say, listen, you know, SGC is not financially viable for us anymore. We're actually sort of almost losing money or not making money with that brand now. And so it's that decision. That's the reason. We didn't want to close them, but it's like any business. If they're not making you a profit or they're not, you know, keeping you in the black and they're starting to be in the red, then we have to make a business decision. You think they're trying to look like the good guy when they close SGC rather than just be the bad guy and say we're closing? You think there's sort of that in play?
I really can't answer that question because I don't know what to make it financially make sense, because we don't know what they purchased them for. We don't know what the operation costs are. Obviously, again, if they're taking staff away, you're business costs are lowering. I would assume that if some of this is to help PSA, they might, SGC just moved into that larger office space there. They might be planning to flip them back to where, they have the smaller space and PSA goes into the bigger space. I don't really know any of those plans. That would make the most sense to me if you're trying to create more volume or more capacity to help PSA out, give them the space to be able to do it. But I don't know what the scenario is going to hold there. I mean, Beckett is still operating, and what did they do in May? 59. So I mean, I guess it would have to it would depend on how many they're getting. If it's enough that they're barely surviving, if they're doing less than tag, and not throwing shade out there, but if they're doing less than a company like Tag or something, then yeah, you might want to consider shutting the doors. But I don't know what their op costs are. I don't know what the purchase price was when the sale happened. Obviously, Nat, he has to be a smart guy. He's making moves that I guess he feels is best. Whether he truly believes this decision is the best for both companies, that part I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's a one-way street right now, just by the way that was explained. So, I don't think he would just let them continue on just to be nice to the hobby. But I also don't know what the number would be to make it, maintain. I'm going to just stick with my tinfoil of they're still going to be around in 2026, and they're going to be pushing somewhere in the vicinity of 50,000.
Yeah, well, listen, I think we can both end with the agreement. I think the next 3 to 6 months and the gem rate report and seeing how this decision's being received by the collectors, by the hobbyists across the board, right? It's going to be an interesting next 3 to 6 months. I think what happens in the next 3 to 6 months will set the tone for what will happen in the next year and obviously past that.
And I know that the company, we've discussed, I know they're a supporter of your podcast and everything.
Yep.
And I don't know.
For the moment.
Well, I want to make something clear because if they do listen, they obviously have been great to me and my wife and everybody that is. They even went as far as making a custom label and submitting free submissions for a young boy that was battling cancer. Many people know him, Mason Forelli. He wound up losing his battle, but we were blessed enough to get to know Mason and his dad a bit and help them. We were the ones who submitted the cards for Mason and got all that done through the help of Refractor Jones. I just want to say Pete and my rep, Brian, Andy Raffa, who was my rep when I started, and he's now with JSA. Like all of the people I've ever dealt with the company, they have been absolutely amazing. And I do want to reiterate, it's not being negative Nancy or Debbie Downer, the sky is falling or anything else.
No,
it just sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks seeing Pete take that role and being so passionate and building that company to something people said it couldn't be, and know that the likelihood is it's going to just make a U-turn. And I kind of feel bad for him because he didn't do everything he promised us. He didn't give us the podcast. He didn't, the app, it got around to it. We never got a set rate. He never updated the label, but he did give the collectors and the ones who supported SGC great service, awesome turnaround time, for the most part, very consistent, fair, accurate grading, and price points that were usually really good. And so if they listen, I just want to make sure all of them, everybody within the company, I've appreciated you guys. There's no hate, no bad blood. For me, the only reason I bowed out was I've never since the start charged more than the company themselves charged. And I mostly did it just to help the folks out. And I've had people message and say, hey, I'll pay more. And it's not something I want to do. I don't want to feel like I'm making people pay, especially with the economy and finances and everything else. It's cheaper for them to do it on their own. So, that's the only reason I made the deal.
Yeah. Well said. I echo that sentiment, what you said about the staff and the people at SG. It's a great point. And let's hope, this is maybe just a blip on the radar. I don't know if it is or it isn't. I have a gut feeling, but sometimes my gut feelings can be wrong too, Brandon. So maybe I'm sort of hoping my gut feelings wrong. Again, my relationship with SGC has always been a good one. The people have been great. To me, they've always answered my questions and responded back, come on the show, blah, blah, blah. I have nothing negative to say there. And I hope that, that continues and they can, and I'll leave it at that. But I appreciate, number one, I appreciate your candor and your candidness. That's how I try to be. Even like you said, they're a sponsor of the show. But even when they sponsored this started, I said, listen, I'm going to give my opinion. People are going to come on the show. People are going to come on the show and give their opinion that may not always align with you. I keep it real. And they're like, John, we want you to be like that. We can't tell your guests what to say or not to say. So you do you. And they've always been supportive even on that. So I appreciate you being the same way. And we think very similar. Let me just put it that way. But more about you here, kind of wrapping it up here. I always give the guests last word, where people can find you on YouTube, any social, anything you want to share where people can see what Bobbles and Ballcards.
I have 2 YouTube channels. I don't put out like any kind of schedule of, I kind of, if something like if I want to get a wild hair and do a video or something, I do it. But Bobbles and Ballcards is the card channel. The other channel I haven't done it in a while, but Instagram, Bobbles and Ballcards, and then we do have a Facebook group. That's been the place where the group submissions happen, where all these relayed and everything. It's also Bobbles and Ballcards.
Well, Brandon, thank you. We'll do this again. Maybe not a whole year, but we'll revisit, and maybe we'll revisit also again in a year and kind of look at how close your Nostradamus prediction was.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks, Brandon. Take care.
Thank you.
There you go. We, want to thank Brandon for coming on. Last episode, this episode, kind of deep dived a little bit what we think is going on at SGC and maybe what happens in the future with SGC. We don't know for sure. We're only speculating, but it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, how some of these decisions they're making, maybe it's a part of a big picture thing. But, Brandon loves the hobby. He may not bulk submit anymore, but he's still going to be an important part of the hobby.
Time for our Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week.
Hello, we are
Graham,
Rory,
Annie,
and we are
Lakeside Collectibles.
Please remember,
The hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.